shit, man. They gonna try to take your soul, man. That shit ain't for sale. Turn up.
Stay down, 10 toes, big dog, won't fold. Stay down, 10 toes, now I'm pulling up in the benzo. Stay down, 10 toes, got it out the mud, every struck gold. Stay down, 10 toes, they don't wanna see a fly nigga blow. Look at me now. I live it, they rap it, they 40, I'm packing that. Look at me now. My swag is immaculate, it ain't no capping that. Look at me now. Don't come with that fuckery, they know what's up with me.
Welcome to Emerge Podcast 360. I'm your host, Maserati. It feels so good to be back with you guys after a few weeks off. We want to thank you guys for all the likes, shares, and subscriptions on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and now TikTok. This is being brought to you by Involved Social Civic Club, where we understand the social and civic needs of love, learn, live, and laugh, and by our own Kawan D. Whaley out there at Bro Inc. Photography. And guys, do we have a pioneer for you on this Pioneer Wednesday? He is a graduate of Prairie View Academy in 1985. He attended Northeast Louisiana University, now ULM, from 85 to 87. He started on the police force, y'all. It's been now 30-something plus years in law enforcement. He was nominated to sheriff in 2007 here in Morehouse Parish, where he is still currently our own sheriff. Hey, I give you none other than a pioneer in Louisiana Law Enforcement Hall of Fame. Our own Sheriff Mike Tubbs is in the building. How you doing today, Sheriff?
Man, I'm doing good. How's it going?
We are so elated and excited to have you on. Your resume is about 20 minutes long, so I'm going to let you tell it better than I can. We're just so happy to have you here. Sheriff, for the people that may not know you from a personal basis, kind of give us a briefing about your upbringing and your inspiration for law enforcement.
Okay. You know, I was born and raised in Morehouse Parish in 1967. I've lived my whole life here, attended school here, attended NLU after high school, began my law enforcement career at a very early age, actually part-time as a senior in high school. I was working for Sheriff Wandle Cootie at the Morehouse Parish Sheriff's Office. It's something I've always had an interest in. You know, my family's been a local-owned business. They were involved in the ambulance service and then still currently involved in a record service. So I had a lot of interaction with law enforcement at an early age, and it's just something that I took a liking to, that I had an interest in, and I just started early and have continued to really learn over the last 30, almost 40 years.
Most definitely, Sheriff. And I know the job, it can be strenuous at sometimes, and I know most definitely can be stressful. But one thing, you know, I want to ask you from Emerge 360, what are you doing with the police chief within the parish to provide a better public service? You know, from when you started to now, the crime rate is gone out the window. What are we doing now to kind of corral that?
Well, like as I said, I spent 13, 14 years, you know, at Bastrop Police, and, you know, very proud to serve over there. When I was there, we were, 50, 60 employees strong. And I will circle back around to the question you're asking. When I came to the Morehouse Parish Sheriff's Office, we were almost 200 total with corrections and everything. But over probably the last 4 or 5 years, well, maybe longer than that, there's just seemed to have been a, I don't know, people aren't beating our doors down, you know, to come to work there anymore. And in the last year, we've had to supplement some patrols with Bastrop PD, obviously putting more, more work on our folks. So, you know, we've always enjoyed a good relationship. We've always tried to supplement, even when they were strong, you know, we supplemented, when asked at Bastrop PD. We also, you know, we do the same for Morehouse, Collinston, Bonita, our other villages that maintain police departments. So, you know, we'll continue to work with those guys, fill in as needed. It has certainly become a task. I was looking at some numbers when you first mentioned me doing this, and, you know, just take 2022 from January to August. We worked 4,622 complaints. And so far, at the same number of days into this year, we worked 5,393. So that's an additional 771, complaints that's kind of been, put on my people. So they have to pick up some slack. So they work tirelessly, to try to maintain adequate law enforcement for the whole parish. I am, the sheriff of the entire parish, and that does include Bastrop and Marouge and these other places. So we do, serve law enforcement functions inside municipalities.
Right. And I know, Sheriff, growing up, pretty much half of my life, I know you've been a police or a sheriff, deputy, and now the sheriff. And I know to bring everybody together, being the sheriff is what your ultimate goal is, being over the whole parish. But I want to know, Sheriff, when it comes to this mental illness, which we see is becoming prominent in Morehouse Parish with the drugs, and how are we dealing with that? How are we going to deal with these people with these mental illnesses?
Right, and that has certainly presented challenges to law enforcement over the years. I can't take all of that credit. Actually, under Sheriff Danny McGrew, we started getting the deputies trained in crisis intervention training. It's actually the Memphis model. It rolled down through Monroe Police Department, and I don't know, early 2000s, somewhere in there, we began to train officers to deal with all types of mental illness and other things. As some of those grants went away, fortunately, the North Delta Police Academy has picked up some of that training. And in fact, I confirmed that just this week. I know they do annual, online training, but in your basic training academy, there's been some things that are added there. So the deputies and all police officers in our region are trained in their basic training, to deal with mental illness. Also, that's to include, and we're getting there, our elderly population, our handicapped population. So that training stays on the forefront. It's reinforced annually in the minimal 20 hours that the officers have to have. Use of force obviously is in there, but there's an emphasis on dealing with elderly, dealing with mental illness. And I think you'll see those efforts. I think there'll be other stuff in the future to maybe even add additional training in those areas.
Right. And Sheriff, not only when it comes to the community dealing with mental illness, but I know the strain that is on the city of Bastrop Police Department. And I had the opportunity to have a meeting with Mayor Olive. What are we doing with the sheriff department now that these guys are taking on more roles and putting in more hours? What are we doing for their mental capacity? Because I know the police department was stressed out, and that's why you guys are aiding now. But what are you doing for your guys that's taking on a bigger role for their mental capacity?
That the supervisors have to keep a very, close eye on. You always have to watch out for fatigue. Ensure that they're not just, sometimes you're meeting yourself, coming in the door, working too many hours. So, as administrators, we certainly have to keep a close eye on that. We do have available resources that are available for the deputies. We have several, chaplains that check in, with the deputies on other issues. Because, we're not immune. We have to see some very horrible things sometimes that human beings can do to other human beings. So that's something that we certainly try to be on top of. But really, your supervisors have to keep an eye on that. There's adequate resources there. I'm not saying that the guys will always reach out for those. So those are something that certainly supervisors have to keep an eye on.
Well, I'm just so happy to have you here, Sheriff. We're going to take a short intermission, and then we come back. We're going to jump into some of the things that, how we're going to keep down incarceration rate and how you feel about the community and what is your future plans when you're re-elected as Sheriff. We hope so, which will be a good thing. And we're going to know what's the future with Sheriff Mike Tubbs and where do he want to lead Morehouse Parish when we come back after this short intermission. We'll be right back with our own Sheriff Mike Tubbs when we return after this short intermission.
Immerse 360 Podcasts focuses on uplifting rural and urban areas and dire conditions with no solutions by shedding light on pioneers, athletes, and political figures who have made an impression on Northeast Louisiana and surrounding areas. Immerse understands the social and civic needs to love, learn, live, and laugh. So tap in every Sunday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. on all social networks and platforms. Always remember, Immerse 360.
Welcome back. We're still here with our own Sheriff Mike Tubbs. This portion of the show is being brought to you by Sincerely Mo Cleaning in Bastrop in Northeast Louisiana and Northeast Counseling LLC here in Scrap City. We're still here with legendary and icon and pioneer law enforcement, 16 years as sheriff of Morehouse Parish, Mr. Mike Tubbs. Sheriff, when we went to intermission, you shared with us about the mental illness and the programs and the fortitude you're putting forth to make sure that our officers stay with a healthy mental capacity. But let's jump into the crime rate. This is a generation that is I don't understand them. What are we doing to try to keep down the crime rate thus far?
In the last few, years, months, we have incorporated a street crimes unit to go to areas where we're having gunfire, where we're having drug activity, as we get complaints reported by neighbors. This particular unit responds to those areas. I had some numbers. I didn't pull those, but I would guess somewhere around this year they've taken close to 100 firearms off the streets. I hate to say illegal firearms. Some of these are illegal firearms, but for us to take a firearm into custody, normally it's been used in a crime or it's being carried by a person under the age to legally possess one. So they do a good job out there policing in the communities. We get a lot of complaints, from elderly citizens that are living in these communities, and they want to see, they want to see a strong presence there. So we have implemented that. Recently, we've added a canine. We hadn't had a dog in some time, so we use that dog certainly, for drug detection purposes, but it's also a patrol dog. We can use it for lost children, lost adults, and then we can also use it to track down people that are running from us. So, those are just some of the tools we've put out there. We've added the less lethals to the deputies to give alternative use of forces. We've always carried pepper spray. Now we're carrying tasers. So I try to keep the guys and girls and the, give them other tools other than handguns and fists. So that training continues. We're looking at some additional equipment in the future. Actually, some of my top administrators this afternoon met with some salespeople looking at some new items that we may roll out to keep the deputies safer and, to cut down on complaints, So we're always trying to stay on top of that as budgets allow. We've never sacrificed safety. All the guys are wearing bulletproof vests. They have adequate safety equipment. So, they're out there on the streets. They're doing a very tough job. They're doing a dangerous job. When I started in the early days, you rarely dealt with anyone with a firearm, but the possibility of them dealing with multiple people just tonight, with firearms is really real. So I saw a big change since 1988, as to what we're dealing with on the street now, and just respect for human beings, how we treat each other sometimes, how we speak to each other. Those things have changed since the 80s and 90s. We seem to, see more violent things. We didn't have a lot of violent crime when I started. I would say our thefts and burglaries are probably down, but our violent crime has increased. So, and it's not just here. I meet with other sheriffs. I'm on a lot of statewide committees and boards. I'm obviously very involved in the Louisiana Sheriff's Association, so I stay on top of what's happening from Baton Rouge to New Orleans to, Tensas Parish, our smaller places. So unfortunately, you see it all across the board. But to try to keep that crime down, we try to keep adequate number of officers, on the streets.
Right, most definitely. And, Sheriff, you said something in your statement just then about the budget. knowing that we're not that economically sound, but you manage one of the bigger budgets in the parish outside of a Head Start, and that's sad. How difficult it is to make sure that you got the resources and they're going to the right place, Sheriff?
Right. I have a amazing staff that has a lot of years of experience in the civil department. You know, our total budget somewhere around 9.5. Corrections is a big part of that budget, but we and actually since COVID, people began to maybe shop more at home, shop more online. You know, we have seen an uptick in that. So our budget has normally remain very stable. And we've still been able to buy decent equipment. You know, I try to keep the deputies in decent vehicles. We have to maintain those vehicles. But with the cost of everything up, you know, just make a trip to the grocery store and see what you spend now versus what you spent 2 years ago. So I think that has contributed to the uptick in sales tax. So that has remained the general fund, the police budget, you know, has actually probably improved. Now you go over to the correction side, you know, where we only get X number of dollars to house inmates. When food goes up for your house, it goes up for us at the jail. When gas prices go up, when everything goes up, it goes up. But in the jail, you know, your income doesn't go up. So there's certainly been some challenges to keep the correctional division afloat. Also staffing, you know, trying to keep adequate number of correctional officers there. So there's really some challenges on the correction side. But again, on the general fund side, you know, we've been able to grow some and keep, you know, hire employees as aggressively as I can put people out there. Now, there are some challenges with hiring employees. As I said earlier, people are not standing in line to do this job anymore. But so therefore, I have to keep my pay competitive. And unfortunately, I have to compete with Monroe PD, Ouachita Parish Sheriff's Office, West Monroe, and the state police. Those are areas that have, you know, better budgets, able to pay better. So I have to stay competitive with Richland Parish, West Carroll, you know, what I call the smaller sheriff's offices that, you know, we all kind of have that same issue. So I have to keep salaries in line with those agencies to maintain people. You see, another factor we talked about a while ago with mental health, you know, you do see some burnout. And then people go off to make more money with a lot less stress. So it certainly has its challenges. But you know, currently I feel like I'm almost full and staffed up, but I'm losing. You know, I gained one this week, and I'm losing one. Yes, be the second one I've lost. You know, to the state police, and I'm proud of those guys that they're going on to do bigger and better things. But I'm also proud of those that have stayed here and worked in local law enforcement to make their community safer. And I've always tried to hire people from Morehouse Parish. But, you know, I do have some people that live outside the parish. But for the most part, you know, we hire people from here.
Right. And, you know, Sheriff, you know, I know the job is challenging. You know, everybody can say this and say that. We know the job is challenging. But, you know, we just had a recent police shooting. And it shook Bastrop. You know, we watch it on TV, and then it finally happens here. How do you handle conflict within the department?
You know, and unfortunately, I've had to participate, you know, in a couple of these, and I think the best way, you know, is to, you know, keep the public informed, keep the agency informed. Be as upfront as you can be, you know, as details can be made available. Now, obviously, there's some things we can't put out there for privacy things, and employees have rights and certain things like that. So I just think, you know, being upfront, getting the information out there in a timely manner. Always say, you know, the news is they're going to call, and if you're not giving them something, somebody else will. So I try to put out information as accurately and as quickly, you know, as we can, especially when it involves my department. I'm never too quick to go steal another agency's thunder or step out there and try to speak for any of our other police—
Right. You know, in Sheriff Tubbs, in that situation, how do you prioritize what's more important in a situation like that? How do you prioritize, okay, we're going to attack this? You may have several situations going on. How do you prioritize what's more important right now?
Right. Always on and I'm assuming you're talking about, an active shooter or something along those lines. But first, the protection of life, that would be the highest priority to protect people's lives. And then you can take other things kind of as you triage down, property's under there somewhere. But at the end of the day, that's just stuff. So our first responsibility would be to protect the lives of those that we're bound to protect. So always would be life first. Property and other stuff can be replaced.
Right. And that's a lot of times, people want to quick respond sometimes to protect people or protect things. But like you say, you have to prioritize, and the first thing is to protect life. But, looking at the community, Sheriff, before we go to intermission, you've been here all your life. You've been in law enforcement here 30 plus years. We always see the bad side. Before we take intermission, what do you love about Morehouse Parish, Sheriff Tubbs?
The most thing is obviously our people, because we're small enough that we still know pretty much everyone knows everyone. So we have some awesome people. I always say sometimes the bad news makes so much noise, and sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. But at the end of the day, this parish is still filled with a whole lot of great people that do great things every day just to make it great. And you can look around the community, and see growth and see other things that just seem to be improving. So I think our biggest asset would be our people.
Right. And like I say, Sheriff, we're going to take another short intermission. We come back, we're going to ask you a few more questions and let you wrap up so you can get back to your busy day. But, I'm just happy to have you, and I want to work with you on trying to help Morehouse Community Development, Morehouse Economic Development Team, kind of everybody pool in together, and I think we can come out this mud. What you think about it, Sheriff?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to take a short intermission. We come back, we're going to get your ideology on that, and then we're going to let you go. And I want everybody to know that we're having a great time here with Sheriff Mike Tubbs, and we'll be right back after this intermission.
Yes, sir.
DJ Dewey rock on the track.
Welcome back. We're still here with our own legendary Louisiana law enforcement Hall of Famer himself, Sheriff Mike Tubbs. This portion of the show is being brought to you by MCIO, Head Start, and Kick Thrones of Scrap City, Louisiana, and Stepping Stones, LLC of Jonesboro, Louisiana. Sheriff Tubbs, we went to intermission. You have gave us a rundown on pretty much how in the day in the life of Sheriff Mike Tubbs. Before we let you go, Sheriff, we have a few more questions that we want to ask you about yourself. Where do you see yourself, Sheriff Tubbs, in the next 5 years, other than being the sheriff again?
I'm just looking forward to continuing to serve Morehouse Parish for another 5 years. I've had people ask, when I hit that magic number of 55, that I could retire. I always say I still give a darn. I still care. I care about the crime, from everything from homicides to a weed eater theft. I'm still very concerned about it. So I'm just looking forward to hanging around another 5 years, continuing to make a difference. I always thought maybe one of these days I'll slow down, but I get just as passionate about this job probably as I always have. And I want to, instill that in the deputies. They're going to feed off the top. If the top doesn't seem too concerned, then they shouldn't seem too concerned. But again, I can't stand anything from a theft to to these shootings. Nobody wants to see bad news, but I said a while ago, sometimes bad news, will outrun the good news all day long.
Most definitely. Sheriff, we get a bad rap, and law enforcement gets a bad rap, but at the end of the day, without law enforcement, you'll have chaos, you won't have discipline in the community. But right. Sheriff Tubbs, give me one weakness, and what are you doing to strengthen that weakness as a person?
Wow. One weakness is I'm a horrible driver. But when I think about a weakness, probably being sometimes getting too involved, being too kind of big-hearted. I tend to, feel sorry for someone. And I've always said if I ever get in trouble for anything, it's going to be trying to help someone. It's not going to be for taking money or nothing foolish like that. But when I can help a person that needs it, sometimes I tend to probably get too overly involved in that. I don't know how you correct that. That's probably a good thing. But just, caring for people. I try to be everything for everybody. I try to be at as many functions as I can be at, and just to make myself available to the point of sometimes you're just wore slap out, or you feel like I can't talk to another person today. But so that I wouldn't necessarily maybe call that a weakness. That could be a strength. That I am pretty compassionate, and I understand I put a lot of people in jail, and and that is the mechanism to deal with some of this. When people do things that require, them going to jail, that's part of an oath and obligation that I took. So I don't know. I'm sure if you talk to my family and close friends, they'll tell you he's got a bunch of weaknesses, and there's a lot of things he ought to fix. But I think about that. But again, I am a terrible driver. You wouldn't want to ride with me.
and I believe it or not, I saw you a couple of times, Sheriff, and you're not lying to us today.
I know I'm a bad driver.
But Sheriff, before I let you go, let's go to a trying situation that you've faced in your career. If you can go back, what would you do different in that situation?
I thought about that a little bit, and I can think of a time or two that maybe you rushed to judgment on something, or you didn't have all the facts. And there was, there's always a learning curve. I started in this game early. So most of the people I've supervised throughout my career have been a little bit older than me, some a lot older than me. And I was thinking sometimes just the rush into judgment. So I think over the years, I've learned sometime when you got to make a really tough decision, or, step back, take a couple of breaths, look at it, evaluate it in a day or two. So there's been some things that we've done that, I probably would have done differently today, being 56-year-old Mike. I would probably respond to those a little differently. So if nothing else, your kids and your grandkids will teach you patience, but sometimes that age will kick in there too. So,
before we let you go, Sheriff, like I said, I enjoyed you, and I appreciate you stopping through and giving us this time. We always ask our guests before we let them go, looking through a glass, for the people that don't get a chance to talk to you, Sheriff, think about them. Yes. What would you like the citizens of Morehouse Parish to know from the heart of Sheriff Mike Tubbs?
Man, I appreciate that. And from the heart, it is, and I've said this time and time again, but it has been such an honor and a privilege, to have the ability, and that the people have allowed me to serve as a sheriff of Morehouse Parish, 4 terms. It's just been awesome to have their support. I'll ask for, their continued support, and all I can do is make a promise that I will continue, to work hard and make them proud of the agency and the work we do. I think I've always been accessible. I've advertised my cell phone number, and that's a pledge I had in 2008 when I took office, that I would be accessible to these citizens, and I'll continue to be. Sometimes, we get a lot of texts during the day, and when you were texting me, it may take me 4 or 5 hours sometimes to sit down and go back through all these text messages. but you know, always make an effort to get back in touch with you. So I'll just continue that pledge, and I'll continue to work hard. And I'd just like to thank everyone for the opportunity that I've had to serve.
Yes, sir, most definitely. Like I said, Sheriff, we appreciate you for taking out the time and stopping through Immerse 360 and dropping those jewels and gems that people have been dying to hear from you. I got tired of them asking, you gonna get Sheriff Tubbs? You know the ladies that always, you they boy, man. And I
appreciate that. No, I do. I appreciate my supporters. And again, I had a lady tell me a long time ago, the very first time I ran, I didn't support you, blah, blah, blah. But she said, at the end of the day, you're still my sheriff. And you're right. At the end of the day, I'm still your sheriff. Whether, you know, you supported me or not, I will just continue to work just as hard for every citizen of this parish.
Well, Sheriff, we're going to let you get back to your busy night and deal with those grandkids. Hey, man, good luck on your re-election. You guys get out and vote. He's been doing it. Why not let him take us on into the future until he gets tired of doing it? And we really enjoy you, Sheriff.
Man, I enjoyed it. Again, thanks for the opportunity, and I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, I'm your host, Maserati. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. This has been brought to you by Morehouse Economic Development and Morehouse Community Development and your own Involved Social and Civic Club, where we understand the social and civic needs of love, learn, live, and laugh. Until next time, y'all get involved. Y'all stay encouraged. And most of all, y'all stay immersed. We out of this thing.
Yes, sir. Ooh, yeah.
Samir Ray Sean.
Come on and keep it real with me, y'all. I know the streets, yeah, they still call, but we're tryna ball until it fall. See you through the struggle, they tryna kill us all. Come on and keep it real with me, y'all. I know the streets, yeah, they still call, but we're tryna ball until it fall. See you through the struggle, they tryna kill us all.
Can you remember being little kids? Running the streets from block to block, having fun as youngsters that soon stop in flooded rocks. So the streets got took by killers and crooks that look like they was the king of many men, but left the weak mighty shook. I'm tripping off some things that might take a lifetime to get over. I pray my mama shake back before my life for hers is over. If I told you guaranteed I saw it, felt it, or heard it, home these streets done got dirty. It really ain't worth it. All the money, women, big rims, blood diamonds, just splurging. Somebody watching, ready to catch you slipping and kill you, heard me? Cause I done seen cats get it, lose it, and get it again. They try to get out the game, but get snatched to the pen. I wish there was a way I can sit down and explain to these cats that it's more than one way to get in the dime piece and stacking stacks. The streets is watching, the enemy plotting, man, and that's a fact. Hurricane Katrina hit us hard and pushed it back. Come on.
Wanna keep it real with me, y'all.
Let's go.
I know the streets, yeah, they still call, but we're tryna ball until it fall. See you through the struggle, they tryna kill us all. Keep it real with me, y'all. I know the streets, yeah, they still call, but we're tryna ball until it fall.